Hey everyone, this is Christian from Lost in Discovery back with a new video. I wanted to film outside today because it's such a nice day and all my videos have been inside. I thought it would be a nice change to get some fresh air and hear the sounds of Australia's nature in the background maybe. So the other day I was getting mysterious views on my BookTube newbie tag video. So I did some little bit of investigating and I found out that the wonderful Steve Donahue tagged me in the reading taste tag. He said he was looking for some new booktubers, so I guess I was in the right place at the right time. Steve, thank you so much for the tag. I'm excited to do this video. Now I'll just preface this with, I'm very new getting back into reading. I used to be quite a big reader in my late teens, but took a massive break. Now I'm 25 and I'm getting back into it. I'll do my best to answer these questions. I'm sorry if my answers seem a bit basic though, because like I said, I am getting back into it these days. My reading tastes and experience haven't expanded to what they probably will be in a few years. I'm still very much just getting started. Okay, so the first question is, what is your favorite genre? Now this one does not take any time for me to think about it. My favorite genre is fantasy, and it always has been ever since I was little. In every sort of medium of entertainment, it's always been fantasy. I love how creative you can get with fantasy, and it is a very broad term. Different authors and different writers taken in many different directions, and I think that's why I'm drawn to it so much. It kind of started from swords are cool, dragons are nice, dragons are awesome, and battles are epic, but it's expanded into something so much bigger, and I feel like, especially getting into adult fantasy now, I'm seeing how much deeper and more impactful it can get. But putting that all aside, I just like getting dropped into a new world, just find myself completely lost somewhere new and learning about the magic and the world and how things work, and being constantly surprised about how creative authors can be in the places they take me and the worlds that they create. So I think that's why I keep coming back to fantasy. It just kind of brings back that childhood curiosity that I just love to have in my reading experience. The next question is, what is the most difficult genre for you to read? Now, like I said, I've just gotten back into things and I'm pretty much exclusively reading fantasy and dabbling in a little bit of YA when I've been reading The Hunger Games. Look, I did have a lot of criticisms to say about The Hunger Games. I find YA can be a bit frustrating, or perhaps this was just The Hunger Games with the telling instead of showing and being really explicit in what was going on, not leaving enough for the reader to kind of gather themselves. So I do struggle with YA a bit from the experience I have had with it. To be honest, I've been mostly sticking to fantasy, so it sounds really awful, but I haven't read enough to have a solid opinion on this, and I don't want to dismiss another genre that I haven't really delved into so much. So all I can really say is I've had some trouble with YA. I think if I read anything dystopian again, I'd probably have troubles. Beyond that, nothing is really sticking out to me too much. Maybe I need to get back to you guys in about a year once I've read more widely about a genre that would really give me lots of trouble. I'm a bit of a history nut, so non-fiction, there's no problem for me. Fantasy has its roots deeply in European history, so I think I would have no problem reading more non-fiction. So I'm going to keep it to, I'm going to say dystopian. Once I've read one and I've had enough problems with The Hunger Games, I feel like I'm going to be picking the rest apart. I'm just not going to care about the next love triangle in the next YA book probably, but I could be eating my words later. Okay, question 3 is, what is your preferred age range? I'm supposing like this is who the books are targeted to. I'm going to just say 18 to 25 because I fit in there. I still have a fondness of following characters around my age because I find like I can relate to them. Not necessarily saying that I can't relate to other older or younger characters in stories, but I'm finding that when the protagonists are in their 20s, I tend to enjoy the stories. Okay, so the next question is, are you a character-driven or plot-driven reader? This is probably the hardest one out of all the questions because I believe that character and plot are like the two most important things for a good fiction novel. I'm gonna stick to plot for this one. I love my well fleshed out characters that I get attached to and then that we learn about and that we get deeper with their backstories and emotions and their journey. But what tends to keep me coming back to stories, shows, and books is the plot. I want to find out what happens next. If you set up a compelling world and a compelling plot with a journey, with a destination, with something that we're striving towards, something that we're learning to discover, mysteries to be uncovered, this is probably what keeps me coming back into books the most, if I have to be honest. In saying that though, I need those characters to be well fleshed out and well realized, so I can get a sense for who is in this plot. So they kind of go hand in hand for me, but if I have to say what's keeping me coming back to books, it's got to be the plot. Now this will be interesting when I start the First Law trilogy, because I've been told that plot-wise, especially in the first book, nothing too significant is happening, and it's a very character-rich story with not necessarily much of a focus on a plot driving the story. In that case, I'm going to be curious how I go with it, because the types of characters I've heard of in the First Law are right up my alley, and perhaps that will be enough to carry me through that entire series. So it's a very interesting question in this tag. For now I say plot, but of course all these answers are subject to change because, you know, I'm so early into this. Okay, question 5 and 6, I'm going to do these two together. Do you have a preferred perspective, and do you have a preferred tense? And straight off the bat I'm going to say third person past tense. It just feels right for novels to be third person past tense. Of course there are exceptions, but when I've read first person, I see the advantages of it. You get a better sense of being in that character's mind. Maybe it was because I was in Katniss's mind that I didn't like first person so much. I kind of found her a bit irritating, but I just like the balance of third person past tense, because you're still getting into their heads and you're still understanding what's happening, but you have the freedom for a bit of narration about the world and its surroundings in a way that is not so constrictive as first person. I feel like first person is very advantageous if you want to keep the reader in a very specific lane and to kind of put blinders on them to see only a certain way with a character. I can totally see the advantages of first person, but for me, third person past tense, that's all it's about. Sorry, I just saw a wombat over there. Okay, question 7 is, do you prefer series or standalone books? For this one, I'm going to say I prefer series. My two greatest series I've loved to read have been right now the Stormlight Archive, and previously to that was A Song of Ice and Fire. The advantages that a series gives you of this grand scale, this long character development, by the end, you've seen such a change in your characters. They've been through so much, and there's so much to dive into and get lost in. I've read a few standalones now, and I have appreciated just sitting down, starting a book, finishing a book. I understand the beginning, middle, end. I see the journey. I've seen what's happened in a few sittings in like a week, and I can hold on to that story and cherish it for the rest of my life. But I just love a good series that you count down for the next books to come out, you discuss it online with everyone else, you theorize, your mind gets so caught up in what could happen next, and the possibilities are kind of endless as you're reading a series. So I have to say I really do prefer reading series so far. That one I don't see changing as the years go on. Okay, question 8 is, do you prefer long or short books? If you know anything about epic fantasy, the short books kind of don't really exist, and if your favorite author is Brandon Sanderson, you kind of have to like long books. So that's where I'm at with that. I feel like the longer the better, to be honest. If you have an author that you love, that tells stories that you love, why wouldn't you want more? So I feel like a long book written well is the way to go. Right now I'm into a book, which I'll mention at the end, that is kind of long, but man, is it boring and slow, and it's kind of just meandering. So I can understand why people have been put off by long books, but I suggest finding you an author that you really enjoy, that you can stick with for a long book, and I feel like you'll get way more out of it than just a short, quick read. Okay, so our next question is, which format do you like best? For me, it's paperbacks. I like having a physical book. I'm kind of a collector of things. I kind of get obsessed with having a collection of things. Once I moved out of home and moved to London for the first time, I enjoyed kind of reducing my life and having it quite minimalist. But now that I'm back in Australia for a little bit, I've got back into my habit of collecting. I used to collect Blu-rays, I used to collect Pokemon cards when I was little, and I just love seeing my bookshelf get expanded and expanded. And it doesn't help that the UK and Australian covers for Brandon Sanderson books are super consistent in their art style, and I just love how they look together on a shelf. When it comes to hardbacks, I feel like once I've settled down and I live in one certain place, I'm gonna love collecting hardbacks. But for me right now, paperbacks are just the perfect balance of having my physical copy, but having it not too cumbersome and nice and easy to flick through. I find that sometimes hardbacks can just be a bit too, I don't know, just a bit too cumbersome for me. Saying that, I have tried audiobooks a little bit. It doesn't capture the same experience to me as reading a book. It's kind of like listening to a play almost. Totally has its own advantages, but I just like reading it myself. Perhaps when I have a larger backlog and I have much more to get through, I'll lean into audiobooks a bit more. But for me, there's nothing like sitting down with your book and just by the fire or with your nightlight on with a candle and just getting lost into reading that book. The audiobooks, have nothing against them, but I just haven't had that same warm fuzzy feeling with an audiobook than with my physical copy. And the very last question is, what are you currently reading? Well, I'm starting The Well of Ascension, book 2 in the Mistborn trilogy today, and I'm in the middle of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the Hunger Games prequel, and which is the long book that I said is kind of boring and meandering. Now I might get hate for this, but I'm kind of struggling through this book a little bit. The review will be up whenever I end up finishing it. It's taking me a very long time to get through it, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'm probably the last person to read it, but I'm excited to talk about it nonetheless because I feel like it has so much potential to be so much better than it is. Mistborn, on the other hand, I'm so pumped to get into. Everyone's kind of prepping me for the second book to mess with my expectations and kind of do a left turn that I'm not expecting, so I'm really keen to get into that. So yeah, those are the 2 books I'm reading currently. And that was the reading taste tag. Thank you again, Steve. I'll link him below. He's awesome. I want to tag a few people on BookTubes to do this tag as well. The first person I want to tag is Dwayne from Flipping Pages. Man, I would really like to see you do this tag. I would also like to tag Liz from Galactic Reads, a fellow Australian who has just started on BookTube as well. She's fantastic. And I also want to tag Michael Knipp. He's a fantastic booktuber. I found him through Stormlight content, and I'll link him down below as well. All 3 of these guys are really cool booktubers, and we have a lot of crossover interests, so I really do suggest you go and check out their channels. But yeah, that was me for today. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch this tag video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was very relaxed. I hope you enjoyed the outdoor setting as opposed to inside. On Saturday, expect my next Countdown to Rhythm of War video where we'll be talking about Stormlight archive related content. I hope you guys are enjoying that series as well. Anyway, I hope you guys are all well. I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.